Nerds need love too. And indeed they do. So thank you very much to Melissa for tagging me to do the nerd tag thing, in which we discuss why and how we are nerds. So, first up I thought, well, as you can see, I love my nerdy t-shirts. This is my other favourite one, is my Chick with Brain shirt. Because it's a chicken and it's smart. Both makes me laugh and it brings out my feminist side. Okay, so I am essentially a proud nerd. Unfortunately, I'm not a nerd in the nice, typical stereotype that is depicted in things like the IT crowd and the Big Bang Theory. I'm not a geek necessarily. I'm not intelligent enough for that, and I've never excelled in maths or science. I have plenty of friends who fulfill that quota though, so I like hanging around them and having a giggle. My three main areas of nerddom essentially are, number one, film. I have a photographic memory for film dialogue, and this is not a good thing. It truly is freaky. I could deliver film dialogue with the exact mimicking of rhythm that lines are delivered in film. That's how particular my memory is for dialogue, and this can be years on from having seen a film, and only after 1 or 2 viewings. I remember I watched The Little Mermaid again when I was about 16, and I hadn't seen it since I was maybe 7, and the second the film started I found that I knew all the lines, and I was just saying it along with the characters. And I thought, how does that happen? And it keeps me awake at night, because I have, honestly, it's like I've got a little cinema in my head and the films are just on loop. And it can be any film, it'll just pop in my head and I've got the whole thing going, or just one scene going over and over again. And it's the same with plays, which is really annoying because I'm a performer and I do a lot of stage work, so all the plays get stuck in there. It's terrible! But it is a freaky talent, and it sometimes does come in handy, and it's useful to pull out at parties and in social situations. If I'm lacking for things to say myself, I'll just quote a film. But it also means that if other people quote films, and they get something wrong, even if it's just one word or like a tense or something, it really, like, it grates on my nerves and I want to correct them. In terms of film stuff, I also know really random film trivia, which is good for trivia nights, because I help my teams win. I also know like random cast members, like minor cast members of films that you'd never need to know minor cast members of. But again, that helps win trivia games. And yeah, I love documentaries on film. I used to have several that I adored as a child. I had a Shirley Temple one, and Gene Kelly one, and one about the Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals. And yeah, they were my main three, and I watched them so much as a kid that I wore the VHS tapes out, and like it all got all crumpled and I could no longer watch them, which is so sad, and I want to find them all again because they were awesome. I loved those documentaries. Okay, so that's film. Reason number 2 that I'm a nerd, books, of course. I am a avid reader. I especially like books about books, or books about authors, or books about writing, or books about literature in general. I'll stand in front of that like small section in the bookstore for ages, just wishing I had enough money to purchase all of that. I remember when I did my myth and fairy tale course at uni, I don't think I've ever worked so hard and been so dedicated to a course during my 3 years at uni. And I got a high distinction for that one, for all my hard work, and it made all my Disney loving pay off as well, because I was able to write essays in defense of Disney, in like comparing it to the Grimm brothers versions of things and whatnot. And when I got that high distinction, I was happy, and I went out and celebrated by buying myself 2 more anthologies of fairy tales. I do love my fairy tales and myths and things. So yeah, that's just something nerdy in the literature area. And finally, why I'm a nerd, especially in Australia, this is not that socially acceptable. I'm the kind of nerd that other nerds don't like, because I am a musical theatre nerd to the extreme. So I could sit down and watch Law and Order all day long, and by the end of the day I would be able to tell you at least 40 people, I think, who are Broadway names who have appeared in those episodes, because they're always in Law and Order. That's the one reason I like watching the show sometimes. Of course, with Glee, I can tell you all the references that go on. I remember when the Joss Whedon penned episode came up, the one he directed and wrote for. I was so proud of him like I always am, and I wanted to hug him all the more because it was the most packed episode full of Broadway references out of that entire season. I was just like so proud. I was like, yay, Joss Whedon, thank you. He wrote for The Geek in all us musical theatre buffs. I was so happy. And I mean, I've got scrapbooks full of stuff whereby I like wrote essays for myself, not for anybody else, essays on why, like, I think that Eric, the Phantom in the Phantom of the Opera, is a sympathetic character, and why I think Christine made the wrong choice in not staying with him. Yeah, I'm one of those people. I ship that relationship, even though it's disturbing. I mean, I just go to town on my scrapbooking. That's another big thing, and that's with film and book, but especially musical theatre. 99% of all my CDs are musical theatre cast recordings or audio bootlegs, which I don't feel guilty about because I didn't record them. And I'm in Australia, so I can't see these shows. Yeah, I mean, essentially being a musical theatre buff in this country, if you're not living in Melbourne, is tough. And it's very hard to find people that you can, like-minded people you can talk with a lot of the time. Especially if you want to be really particular and pull out the random stuff. I mean, if you know what title of show is, more to the point, if you know all the references in title of show and the references within the references in title of show, that's when you know that you're quite unique in this country. I shouldn't generalise, but it is true. Australia, it's a tough nation. Yes, so musical theatre is probably the big thing, I think, that makes the geek in me go nutty. So yeah, I'm a nerd, and I'm happy about it, because it's fun, and, you know, gives us things to be passionate about. And I think when you can find friends that have similar interests, then it makes discussions with them all the more special and enjoyable, and, you know, creates lively debate. And it's, you know, just that's something extra to talk about, rather than the mundane things that everyone discusses every day. So, yeah, makes me happy. And thank you, Melissa, very much for tagging me. I'm sure I've forgotten a million things I wanted to say, and it's probably gone too long anyway. So I hope it uploads, and I will think of some people to tag. This has been very fun, so thank you for tagging me, and bye everybody.